Welcome to Producer Points. My name is Justin Gammella, and I'll be your host. I'm a producer and songwriter who's had the honor of working with some of the best in the industry. This podcast is about bringing you the one-on-one conversations with producers, mixers, songwriters, and artists that I've always cherished. We'll dive into their unique stories, uncover the secrets behind music creation, and share our mutual love for the great food that fuels our sessions. Join me for real talks straight from the studio where music and life intersect. This is Producer Points. Today on Producer Points, we're delving into the creative universe of a multifaceted music producer, songwriter, and artist whose work transcends genres and boundaries. With a portfolio that boasts collaborations with a constellation of stars such as Doja Cat, BTS, the Chainsmokers, Panic at the Disco, Charlotte Lawrence, Oliver Tree, ASHE, Quinn XCII, Max, and Jawny, his innovative approach to music production has charted new territories in the soundscape of pop, electronic, and beyond. Hailing from the vibrant streets of DC and making waves in the bustling studios of LA, his journey is a vivid narrative of passion, creativity, and a relentless pursuit for excellence. Beyond his collaborations, his own artist project stands as a testament to his versatility and depth, captivating audiences with his unique blend of sounds. As we uncover the stories behind his hit-making process and dive into his personal journey through the industry, prepare to be inspired by the ingenious and visionary talent of Imad Royal.
Wow.
Dude, thanks for being here.
Dude, I need you to walk around with me. I'm like, I did all of that?
Yeah, it is funny, once you start writing down things you've done, you're like, damn, I am pretty cool.
Yeah, you just made me feel great. You just made my day with that intro. That's awesome. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I think we forget just being in the grind of this every day.
Yeah.
That I say this on the podcast a lot, but it's what would 13-year-old Justin think?
Yeah.
You know, when I'm always wanting more, I'm like, damn it, this is really cool.
Oh man, that's everything. I always say that my inner child's my A&R.
Yes.
I'm always trying to excite that inner 16-year-old in me because that's the person who really, I think, peak cared the most about music and everything.
Yeah,
so.
You need that. Yeah, especially if you're really deep in a song or a record or a project and you lose objectivity and be like, man, what would young me want to do here?
100%. You know, 100%.
Dude, thank you so much for doing this. We've never worked together, which is a shame, but that's another conversation. But
my manager loves you too. I told her I was coming to do this. She's like, I love Justin.
I know, thank you. I love that whole team over there at Overall. But I've been such a fan, and we worked on a lot of similar projects or the same projects throughout the years, and always have loved your production and songwriting and stuff. So kudos to you.
Thank you, man.
And we're kind of, we're around the same age. I feel like we've had similar career paths, but I don't know your path too much. So we always start the podcast off with, how'd you get started?
The path is fun.
I want to hear this.
The path is fun. Honestly, it started definitely I think by the time I was 16, 17 in high school, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be in music in some capacity, but I didn't even understand. You hear the terms producer, songwriter, but you don't know what that means or what that is. So for all intents and purposes, I was I just want to go into music. But luckily for me, Benny Blanco and his VA crew kind of grew up down the street from where I grew up.
Yeah, so many great songwriters and producers coming out of Virginia.
It's crazy, man. Yeah. I don't know what's in the water out there. We were the next generation kind of below me and my guys. But when I learned of who he was around the time I was 17, 18, that's when I was oh, I want to do what he's doing. Because that's just, I feel that's already what I'm doing. And I just didn't know it. I thought I was an engineer for a while. I didn't know that I was doing drum programming and I was telling you how to tweak your lyrics and melodies and whatever.
Were you doing bands and stuff?
I was doing bands in high school. I was recording their demos. I saw pretty much my trajectory was I started with drum lessons when I was a kid, and then I loved the drums. I was obsessed with it. I still play drums on people's records.
Amazing.
My instrument of choice. But then that didn't necessarily satisfy. It was just a chase of scratching that itch. It was insatiable. And then I was well, I think I need to learn the guitar now. Yeah. And then it just kept progressing. I was well, I can't afford studios, so I saved up money for 2 birthdays and got my first interface.
Amazing. What was the first interface?
I got a PreSonus Fire Studio project.
I had the same one.
Yes, dude, it's the one.
I had it up until I couldn't use it anymore because, like, you know, all the connections changed.
Well, it got me all the way out to LA.
Yeah, I had it here.
I rocked with it all the way until I got here, so it really stayed for a while.
Yeah.
It had 8 inputs. Obviously, I was a drummer. I was miking up my drums, so you know, then it just started to kind of spiral. You know, I went in from, you know, it was drums and guitar, then recording my own demos, then started recording bands for money. And then a local studio opened up in Maryland. At this point, I pretty much had convinced my parents, along with a couple of friends of mine who are also out here, like Blaze Raley. He's an amazing writer. He was one of the guys that I was rocking with early. We were able to convince our parents to, like, let us not go to college, more or less, because we were going to open up our first business together, which was rad. We were like 19. We opened up this studio together in Bethesda, Maryland, called Indigo Studios.
Yeah, I know Bethesda very well.
Yeah, man, there you go. Yeah. So we that was really those were like probably some of our most formative years. At that point, SoundCloud started to kind of do its thing, and my buddy Isaac and I, who's also a great producer, we didn't know how to, like, market ourselves as producers, right? The music industry at the time, we're talking like 2012, was pretty gatekept still. You know, social media was just starting to be a thing, you know, connecting people. So we found this, I guess, I don't know what to call it. There's like A&R showcases. They'd do like beat battles. They're like producer showcases, but they were framed as like beat battles. So producers would show up. It was like tournament style.
I've never heard of anything
It's
like
really
this.
Fun because I'm also like, I grew up playing sports, so I'm like pretty competitive.
I did like Battle of the Bands because I was in bands my whole life.
Right. So like it's kind of like that. It's like Battle of the Bands, but it's like Battle of the Producers. Yeah, you know. So you'd show up and there's like a lineup of A&Rs. Honestly, like semi-notable A&Rs, like guys who are like Maybach Music at the time, or like Atlantic Records. You know, like Sean Barron was there, who's in Atlantic, and you know, you go up there and two people would go up against each other, and you know, you'd play your beat, they play your beat, and the judge would be like, that guy, you know. And so my buddy Isaac and I were doing it as a production team at the time, and we started like winning those. We won the one in DC, and then we went to one in like Phoenix, which was like the big one, and we won that one. And at that point we got like our first kind of like manager. His name is Cash, who's also now a very successful manager in like the rap space. Also skipped over a little mini part where I was like a metalhead for a while. So I was like in a metal band, and I was my demo recording turned into recording all the local metal bands.
Were you the drummer in the metal band?
I was the drummer in the metal band.
Double bass pedal and everything?
All day, every day. I was like, I even learned how to scream and stuff just for fun. Yeah.
So much fun.
So I think I'd always just been so passionate about music. I just loved music in all shapes and sizes. I loved every aspect of it. And I just kind of kept going wherever it went. So I mean, it went from like, I want to be a drummer in a band, to it turned into like, I want to like be in the studio, which then turned into like, I want to produce metal bands, which then turned into I actually love beat making. But then it turned into like, well, I know how to track vocals, so I want to get vocals on the beat making. Then it turned into, wait, I play the guitar and I have ideas for lyrics and melody. So it just kind of kept evolving. And then I would say by the time I was like 2021, started heavily posting on SoundCloud. And that was probably where I got the most juice. In like 2013, 2014, there was this...
When you say posting on SoundCloud, are you just posting beats, or you're posting like full songs?
That's a great question. I was running 2 accounts simultaneously. I had one that was called Royal, which then obviously turned into Imad Royal, where I was doing more just like weird, I would just call it experimental electronic music, but then I was like bringing in like vocals, like acapellas. I'm trying to think of some now. I mean, I did like of Monsters and Men.
Oh yeah, man, they were huge.
I did just like a bootleg of one of their songs, Dirty Paws, and it just really popped off.
That first record they did was so good.
I think there's still like, I think that was like the one.
I don't think they've never reached that amount of success.
But you also like don't need to when you have like an album that had like 4 like just crazy bangers like that live on for like a lifetime. But yeah, so like I was doing stuff like that. I was dripping like indie songs and like adding some electronic zest to them.
Cool.
And then on the side, I had this other project called Soy Sauce that I was doing anonymously. And that was a fun one because my manager, Danny Kang at the time, had his cousin who was just like trying to change his life. He was a huge video gamer. It was kind of just like this dude who just stayed at home a lot. It was kind of like insular, and he was trying to get him out of his shell. So he was just like, we're going to put my cousin in an Adidas tracksuit and we're going to teach him how to DJ and he's going to be the face of this thing and you're just going to like produce for it. And I was like, sick, let's do it.
That's crazy.
And funny enough, that is what popped off first. We started putting out music, and then guys like Benny Blanco and Cashmere Cat and Diplo and Porter Robinson and just you name it, they were reaching out over this project. And it was more like, I would just say it was just like electronic music, you know. And from there, that was when I generated, like that's when like people really started to seriously hit me up. I remember the first real big dog that hit me up was this guy Evan Taubenfeld at Crush Music. And he reached out and he's like, hey, like, do you want to make pop music? And I was like, yeah, that's like the whole point of these SoundClouds that I'm running, you know? So eventually that led to my first cut, which was Hallelujah by Panic at the Disco. Actually, funny enough, talking about beat battles, the beat that landed with Hallelujah was my finish him beat battle. So I was always like kind of they always told you not to save the best for last because you don't want to get through the rounds. But I was just like, I got enough to get me to the finals. And I was like, I'm going to drop this one and it's going to be like, wow. But I ended up showing him that beat. He's like, this is like great. Actually, initially it was supposed to be a Fall Out Boy song and then it pivoted over to Panic. Which happens, you know, they're adjacent. So and then through also that process, Ricky Reed, who's, you know, legend status producer, he was having his crazy ascension and he had reached a point in his career where he's like, it's time for me to build my publishing house and my label. So he reached out to me via Soy Sauce, and then the Royal project started to kind of do its thing. So they were both kind of cascading over each other. And he was just like, I just want to publish you and I want to sign you as an artist and like let's do the whole gambit. And that is what got me to LA. But yeah, it went drummer to metal producer to beat maker to like DJ to you've done almost all of it. It's I really do feel like I've run the whole gambit. But I think it's just like I just knew that I wanted to be in music. So I was chasing anything and everything because I was like, there's no, like, I was so anti-establishment. I was like, I can't see myself working in any other field other than music, you know. And sometimes I almost wish it was a hobby, even though I'm very blessed with the life that I have now. Sometimes there's a purity about it being a hobby. When it's a hobby, it's a different thing, and you know, when you're doing it, it's so much more special. Like I went to college, I graduated, and I was working a regular job while I was doing music. It was a hobby, but it was also like, I would love for this to be my job. Of course. I cherished those moments when I was working my regular job. It was just there's something exciting about it, you know what I mean? It's very pure too. The intentions are pure, and but I've always worked with this mega kind of chip on my shoulder, or I don't know what to call it, a chip or like a timer or something. But I always worked with this thing that was like, I just feel like something's chasing me, like corporate America is like right behind me, like gunning me down, you know, like if I don't keep running into the music direction. Would you say that's like maybe family background too? Like I had that pressure of like, you gotta get a job. Of course. I mean, it's family pressure, it's societal pressure. I mean, my parents are immigrants, you know, they came from Lebanon. Same, my dad's from Italy, immigrant. You know, and so there's this thing where it's just like they come from the you know, the great sacrifice generation where they're like, we're gonna leave our countries, we're gonna leave our families behind so we can go to America, you know, land of opportunity. Our son's going to get a great education. And he's going to go be a doctor or a lawyer or something cool like that. And, you know, lucky for me, like my dad did grow up playing in bands in college and stuff. My affinity for music probably came from him. He had the bug. He had the bug. He always had an ear for music. I mean, I still play him like records just to kind of get his vibe. And he's usually spot on, like super random sidebar. I remember playing him something and he was like, this is too slow. You could speed this up a little bit. And I was like, you're right. That's a good note. You know what I mean? I try and have like casual, I say casual like listeners, but people not in the industry to get opinions every once in a while. I'm like, what's like your gut reaction? Totally. Like if I could, I would love to like play my demos and records in like a club. Just to see how people react. Totally. Because that's like the purest form of like End of the day,
anything.
We're not making music for other producers.
No.
We're making music for humans.
For the people.
Who don't know anything about music.
Yes.
They just know what they like and what they don't like.
Yep.
It's really raw. Actually, it's funny because like I used to be like, when I first came out here, I was like very like, I was younger. I've been out here for almost a decade now.
Right.
So I was very like, I probably had a little bit of an ego on me, and
we all did.
And so like if an A&R was giving me notes, I was like, what do you know? You know what I mean? And now it's like the complete opposite. Funny enough, like I really cherish an A&R's opinion because like they want the same result, right? They want to like something, and they want it to be successful, and maybe they don't have the answers, but if they're like, hey, like there's something here. I don't write that off. I'm like, I'm gonna go. It's okay that you don't have the answers, but you even just telling me to look at this section,
like something's off. I'm
gonna try. I'm gonna take a look at it. I'm gonna address it. I'm gonna figure it out. It literally just happened to me last night, actually. Like I sent in a demo thing, and they're like, something's and I was like, all right. And I took a step back, and I came back, and I made some edits, and they're like, yes, you figured it out.
I like that too. I'm kind of in the way where it's like, notes to me are like, I'll take them or leave them kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like what I don't always love, and I'd love your opinion on this, is I like more open-ended kind of suggestions where something about this feels like something's rushed or something whatever, as opposed to like, can you add some hi-hats in the verse?
Totally. That's the thing, because like that's like where I still think there's objectivity and subjectivity in music, right? Even though music is generally a subjective vibe, like I feel like I saw this on like a TikTok or something where there was a clip of like Bill Hader. He was just talking about his creative process, and like when he's showing people like whether it's a skit or like an episode or something that, and he was saying the solution that people offer you is rarely right, but them not feeling right about something is probably correct.
Yes.
So he's always just like, I never take the suggestions that they give me, but I do go back and address that situation. Yeah. And so I feel like I'm applying that to music as well, where, I actually really appreciate the A&Rs who don't try to be like, I don't like the snare or something.
It's when there's some A&Rs that like wish they could be producers, but they didn't have the talent. And those are the ones that I try to stay away from personally.
Yeah.
But, I always appreciate like that. Bill
I
Hader
just smile and nod, and
then
I just go and do whatever I think I need to do. But I do take the fact that there's something not fully sitting right with them to heart. I will address that. I will try to make it. I will try to make it right or fix it.
Yeah. I kind of want to stay on this topic.
Yeah.
I had a really bad experience. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Wrote the song with this artist. I'm going to leave most of it unnamed.
Sure.
And it was like a piano vocal.
Cool.
And we kind of wrote it like that. And I added some like light production around, but I was like, I don't know if it needs more.
Yeah.
This feels right. A&Rs come hit me. They're like, well, this artist, most of her songs are just piano vocal, and we don't want another one.
Okay.
Right. And I'm just like, all right. And in my head, I'm like, that's what we wrote.
Yeah.
Like then we should just write another song. And they like, it was like a 3-month thing where I kept on trying to like produce more, add drums, blah, blah, blah. And like the record didn't end up coming out because like I think it like ended up being a piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, we have it's kind of our jobs as producers to a certain degree to kind of understand what a song needs, you know? And like I feel like it is unfortunate if it fell into a sea of other piano vocals, but like you wouldn't tell that to like Adele, who like 80% of her catalog is like piano vocals or something with some like light drums, you know? So it's kind of like, if that's what the song called for, and and I always say this, like I feel like some songs are song-centric, song-forward songs where producers just need to make like an interesting bed, but like not really touch or poke or get in the way of the song.
It's getting out of the way, if anything.
Yeah, exactly. You just want to give them a nice little landscape for their beautiful song. And then other times, it's a producer-forward song. I mean, honestly, Ricky is a king of that. Like some of those Jason Derulo records, Derulo's performance is fun and the choruses are interesting, but the production is like the one. It's the star of the show.
Yes,
and
it's
so
understanding that difference.
You need to know when it's time to really, have like a standout production, or when it's time to just have something that's laid back and let like the song shine.
Yeah, just like there's nothing better than as a producer. Like it's how I felt originally about that song, where I was like, oh, I don't have to do too much. We wrote a great song today. sick.
Yeah.
I just had to make the vocal sound great. And then, it was just like, it was also such a big learning experience for me where it's like, there's politics at play. I don't want someone to think I'm difficult. I always want to I'm always open to try things.
Totally.
But at the end of the day, it's like when you try so many times, I'll just be like, guys, maybe this first version was the best.
Especially if because the thing that people don't understand is that the more, it's funny, is the more versions you make, the more, the song, people lose perspective.
Yep.
They lose their juice on the song, I try not to be difficult either. I get it. You want to be a team player. You want to try. But I have been, especially in the last year, I've been very good about drawing certain boundaries, especially if I feel very strongly. If I'm 50-50 and I don't have the answers, I'm honestly not too proud to be you know what, this is maybe as far as I'm going to take this record.
Give it to someone else.
Please pass it on to someone else. Do it. Try it out. I really don't mind. You know what I mean? That's totally cool with me.
It's always tough.
It can be a little frustrating.
Yeah.
People knowing what they don't want is a really tough way to work.
Yeah.
Because you can make 4, 5, 6 different versions of a song. And they can be like, "This isn't it." And you're like, "Great, at least we have a list of versions that you don't want."
Yeah. I get annoyed sometimes when, exactly what happened in the situation with me.
Yeah.
When they're thinking not just about the song, they're thinking about an entire project.
Yeah.
Which I get sometimes, but then that's why I'm my solution to that sometimes is we can write a song that's has drums.
Well, it's also in this musical climate, I just don't think people care that much anymore, and I love the idea of an album.
Right.
I work on albums all the time where I'm doing it start to finish. I'm working on an album right now where we're going through some of those things where we're like, oh, well, we already have a piano song. Right. Is it cool to have another piano? So I get it. But more times than not, I just feel like it's as simple as just every song you got to take it at face. You got to take it for a song by song basis. Yep. And if the song is in a vacuum, beautiful and incredible as is, with it's just as a piano, for instance,
that's what it is.
That's it.
Yeah.
We don't need to. We'll make like you said. We'll make you something new.
Right. It's we can write that song.
I will start with drums on the next song.
Exactly. It's knowing that we'll do that next time.
Yeah.
I want to talk about calling this segment the art of collaboration.
Sick.
And I feel like you're similar to me where I do a lot of co-productions. I love collaborating, and I wanted to talk about what's your approach to specifically co-production, whether you're starting it or someone else starting it, or you're both in the room together. How do you like to work?
It's a really mixed bag. I'd like to think I'm more accommodating than the average producer, only in the sense that I'm more than anything God, I hate doing this because I don't want to just be known as the vibe guy.
No,
because I can definitely produce and I've got great chops, but it's always case by case. I read people's personalities. I can tell some guys are really fucking type A. You know what I mean? They're really they go in, you can tell they want to lead the charge. Right. And I'm not going to put my big bull horns on and be like, dude, I'll be like, cool, bro. You're inspired right now. Yep. You're running. I'm going to stay out of your way. Yep. You can feed me stems, and I'll just kind of be a glorified engineer for a second and let you do your thing. Because if my whole thing with collaboration, the beauty of it is it makes it so that you are never in a position to be uninspired, right? You might wake up one day and be like, I got no juice. I'm not feeling it today. No. But you go in and your collaborators coming in and they're inspired. Now you're inspired off their inspiration, which is awesome. So I'm never gonna get in the way of that. But I would say, I love collaborating. Yeah. I came from a space of being a solo bedroom producer, and I feel like that process allowed me to find my musical personality, things that I like, melodic choices that I would do, for instance. But the second I entered in this space of collaboration and seeing how other people will take my ideas and run with them and vice versa, it's just changed me. Now I can't work alone. I mean, it's actually it's very rare that I'll only work alone if song's finished and I just need to do nerdy producer stuff. I need to clean up, vocal line, melodyne, all the dines, all the eins and dines, and then after that, other than that, I just can't even see a world where I'm not collaborating with somebody else. I love it too much. Everyone has got a unique perspective and unique flavor, and by the way, I never I never had like a mentor type person, so I really soak up so much from every collaboration that I make. I've learned everything that I've learned from working from other people.
I'm the same way. Yeah, I was a top liner when I first came out to LA. I mean, I was a producer as well.
Oh yeah,
but
I forgot that you're just a killer singer, dude.
Well, no, I'm not a singer. I can write. I top line, but I came out to LA and I was like kind of like half the time I was top lining, half the time I was like producing, and I'm always top lining. I can't turn that.
It's a part of the. It's
yes.
For me. It's a part of the. I can't not sing unless like an artist explicitly is like, I do all of my own writing, and I'm like, I won't say a word.
Right.
But I'm here if you need me.
Right. And like I'm always pitching out melodies and same
it's
thing.
Part of the process.
Right. And then for a while, like once I built my own studio and I was like, I'm so particular about a vocal that like I always want to do the vocal for the most part, that I like stopped working with the producers in the room, and it's more just like, all right, whatever. But now I'm doing it more because I'm doing a lot of like K-pop and J-pop camps.
Sick.
And they like put like 2 or 3 producers in a room.
Yeah.
And it's how I've been doing it lately too, where it's like there's 2 or 3 producers and 2 or 3 writers, and it's separated but together. But it's like I don't know. It's like at first I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it, but I love that way of writing. For pitch stuff, where the producers are just there, just like fucking around, doing the thing, working with new people who I've never worked with before.
Sure.
And what I've learned too, I don't know if you feel like this, is that I get sick of my own productions sometimes.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I have the things I do, I play chords a certain way.
Yeah.
It's hard to get out of that. But when I play chords and another producer hears that, they're like, oh shit, you're sick with chords. Like, fuck. Like,
well, it's sick because then that producer might have ideas for you. Exactly. You know what I mean? Which is a lot of fun.
Right.
I mean, it's for me, it's fun to produce in every way of it. Sometimes I am doing big picture production where I really am just like almost like a glorified A&R in the room, which I'm almost just kind of pointing out things that are exciting me.
That's my favorite thing.
You know what I mean? Where I'm just like, oh, that thing you did, I love it. It's exciting. I mean, at the end of the day, like a traditional record producer
was that,
right? They weren't doing drums, they weren't playing guitars, they weren't engineering. They were walking in, folding up their arms, being like, I love that, don't love that. Try perform. I mean, if we're talking about performance times and the whole band was in the live room, like you were just producing their performance. Right. You were like, hey, like lay back on this drum or try or whatever. Or the vocals should only come in like you were just a tastemaker.
I mean, the best producers still have the best taste.
Sure.
They're not the best, mixers or engineers. It's the best taste. They're making the 100%. Best choices.
You got to be taste forward, and they're great editors too.
Yes,
they can take something that might even be at 95% awesome, and they can find that last 5% to just make it like undeniable. And so I always try to remember that like there's always going to be guys who are killer at tracks. There's always going to be guys who are killer, or girls that are who are killer at chords and this, that, and the other. But I always try to remind myself that if I'm not doing those things, I'm still bringing some level of value. If I'm leading with my excitement and leading with my taste and trying to just make a song and a record great in a very like old school kind of approach.
Are you a basketball guy? Are you into basketball?
Relatively.
Yeah. I mean, like one of my favorite players growing up was Jason Kidd.
Sick.
Right?
Yeah.
And like for our listeners who may not know, Jason Kidd was a point guard.
And
his whole shtick was he always made everyone around him better. He was just that guy. And I realized this about myself after being in LA for like 2-3 years, where I was like, oh, I'm that guy. Yeah. I'm really good at like bringing out the best in people and like knowing when to push and pull. Totally. And like that's the kind of role I try and always play as best I can, where it's like I have no need to, like, I don't care if I write the whole song. I don't care if I write none of the songs that day. I just want to like get the best out of it. I think that's what the best producers do as well.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think to be honest, I think that's my whole shtick. I think it might even be in my producer blurb that we send out to people.
Really?
I swear.
That's so funny.
Because I feel like, and that includes the environment that you're in too, right? Yeah. So it's like, I feel like a lot of the great results I've gotten with like artists or in pitches is that like, I feel like the second they step into the room, they feel like they're in a space where, I don't know, they just are more comfortable.
Yeah.
And I try to really foster that. I never want anyone to feel like, I don't know. I want people to come in and be so unabashedly authentic and themselves, and then and say the line that's horrible, or play the thing that sucks, because I'm not going to judge any of it, because I know it's leading us
I am
to
always
greatness.
the person in the room saying, like, go too far.
Yeah.
Like, write down every stupid line, every crazy melody. It's like, because like sometimes you can take a little piece out of there.
Totally.
You know?
I mean, I'm like, we get real weird in my rooms. I try to I want people to be who they are authentically. I don't want them to show up being like their studio selves. I want to be I had a friend actually tell me, and it was really nice to hear, but he was like, honestly, one of your best skills is that you're a great host.
Yeah, that's
like, you are really good at hosting sessions, because I have a good idea of like who to bring together, type of people to put in the room, and I put them in an environment where they can be 100% authentic, because I think that at the core of a song and a production, a record, or whatever, like, the audience, the subconscious connection to a song, I think, is in authenticity. You know,
authenticity, and it needs that identity.
Totally.
And when you're working with an artist, it needs to have it, and people can smell it from a mile away. When
100%, you can tell when it was worked on too hard,
when it feels too manufactured.
100%.
Like, that only maybe works in K-pop.
Yeah,
but
real.
They know it's manufactured. That's the whole thing.
That's like, they literally are in factory mode.
Right.
But like, there's something fun about that too. I'm not gonna like shade it. I mean, I'm not
shading it.
Yeah, but that's what that is.
Yes.
But I mean, so ultimately, like, and it's also made it so that like I can work across all genres, because I just really love music in its core, and for me, it's like, whether I'm using trap drums and 808s or live drums and live bass, it's all the same to me. You know what I mean? Those are just music. Those are just choices. Those are just colors on your palette. But I think the inherent process at its core is the same, which is like, I want to foster an environment where you can just bring your most authentic self forward, and more times than not, that results in a song that connects with people. Yeah,
dude, I love hearing that. You know, like, I want to just talk about this little thing before we move on to the next topic here, but it's what I try and tell other producers when I give advice and stuff, where it's like, make your room, and that's how I have my room, make your room inclusive, make everyone feel comfortable. I have food, I have a bunch of food behind me.
Love it.
Like, food, drink, like, make people feel comfortable, because you're going to get better results. And,
totally.
You know, if, like, I don't know, like, I make a point to tell everyone in the room, like, hey, you want to pick up a guitar? Go grab it. Please grab it. You want to play a synth? Go play it. Like,
even if you've never played a guitar before,
go pick it up. I don't
just
care.
Just do it.
That's
noodle around.
Don't be afraid. I don't care if you break it. It's fine. Like, go for it. You know. So I don't know. I think stuff like that is, sometimes people forget that younger producers are so much more focused on impressing people versus making people, you know, want to hang out with them.
It's like a maturity thing too. You get to it, like, because it's like, you also, there's a lot of built-in pressure when you first come out here. You feel like there's hype, right? You know, people are, a lot of eyes on you. You feel like you got to deliver, you got to perform, so you get weird, and then you realize that the less in the way you are, probably the better the record is. You know, I trust my collaborators a lot. Same. I put up my full trust in them, and every once in a while, if I feel really strongly, I'll chime in or I'll say something. But otherwise, I'm executing. Yep. That's it.
That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
So I want to move on to the next topic here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, but this podcast, I'm also in the podcast. We also talk a lot about food.
Oh,
because,
dude.
And we already, before we started recording, we were already having a little bit of a conversation about food. But I'm a firm believer that, as creative and producers, we are all foodies and food obsessed.
I always say that I literally just sang this to my parents the other day, because we were talking, and I was like, in another life, because they were like, oh, like, you were so good in school, blah, blah. I was like, you have to understand, if I wasn't going to be a music producer, I'd be trying to be a chef right now.
Yeah, I'm in the same way.
I've actually seen your Instagrams. Your food, it looks bomb.
Thank you, man. I take a lot of pride in it. You know?
No, dude, food is, I'm so excited to talk about this.
Yeah. But, so the first thing I want to talk about is, you know, you're having a session, or people are from out of town, your parents are here.
Sure.
Where are you recommending people go? Where are you taking them?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah. Honestly, I can list off a couple situations. For burgers,
okay.
There's a place called Easy Street in North Hollywood. They
Okay, I
do
haven't
smash
tried that.
burgers.
Yeah.
Incredible smash burgers. They're so good. Honestly, they're getting kind of popular. It's like 30 minutes for a burger now.
Yeah, LA,
But-
I think, has the best burgers in the country.
100%. And like, I know New York's got pizza on lock, but we are starting to bring some of those brands over, and so now our pizza game's starting to step up. Like, I got a Joe's Pizza in Studio City. It's pretty
good.
delicious. And Roberta's Pizza
I've
in
heard
Studio
great things
City.
about
Roberta's is great.
Yeah.
On the I'm gonna try to bring us into different backgrounds and cultures. There's a really great kind of mom and pop shop style like Korean barbecue spot. So it's not like Korean barbecue where you cook it. They make it for you.
Okay.
And it's a Korean Hawaiian fusion. It's called Ohana Barbecue.
Yeah.
I have to like stop myself from eating at that place every day.
It's so good.
And I'm also, actually, this intersects with music. I'm a diehard Frank Ocean fan,
Yeah.
and it's Frank Ocean's like favorite place to eat.
Oh, that's I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a whole like article on their wall at Ohana, and it literally says like when Frank's like, yo, when I like leave LA and I come back, I beeline it to Ohana.
One of my favorite things about Hawaiian food too is like the macaroni salad.
Oh, dude, that's what I get every time.
I don't know what it is about it. It's like
perfect.
so simple, but it's so good.
It's so good. Ohana Barbecue is a big one.
Hey gang, I just wanted to pop in here to let you know that the best way you can help this podcast grow is to rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. It tells the algorithm to push our show to other listeners so we can grow, and it's one of, if not the best way to help support this podcast. So if you wouldn't mind, take a second to rate this podcast. Sharing it with your friends would be amazing too. All right, back to the pod. Dude, amazing. Okay, so I want to move on to our deep dives into some of the songs you've worked on.
Sick.
First one we're going to talk about is Boss Bitch by Doja Cat.
Sick.
Really fucking crazy production.
Thank you.
I know what got in the Birds of Prey movie. I'm sure our listeners would love to know, like, how did all that come together?
Honestly, that process was really cool. So pretty much at the tail end of the Birds of Prey kind of soundtrack process, right? I think the movie was coming out in like February, and I got hit up in like November.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Just like
they always do the music last, though.
It's down. Well, the thing is, they had been doing the music for a while, and Atlantic. I used to be signed to Atlantic as an artist, so I still had ties there, and they had pretty much reached out, being like, "We haven't really fully nailed anything for the movie.
Oh, wow.
We have a great soundtrack, but nothing's making it into the movie." So they sent me score cues from the composer Daniel Pemberton.
Okay.
And I gave one of the cues a pop arrangement, and then like production and whatever.
Right.
Then I wrote a song to it with my friend Carousel Amando, and that turned into Charlotte Lawrence's song Jokes on You. That was like my foot in the Birds of Prey door. And then at that point, they just started feeding me stuff.
Right.
So the very next thing they fed me, they're like, hey, we have this song called Boss Bitch. We don't know if it's going to make it on the album right now, but like we feel like there's something fun in there. We've got a vocal and some like minor production, got like drums and like some aux drums and stuff.
Right.
And I was like, okay, like I'll give it a go. I'm generally an optimist, but I'm very pessimistic when it comes to opportunities like this. I'm always just like, oh, like me and 1,000 other dudes are gonna try this out.
It's
so
always
like,
so tough with those.
I'm like, great, I'll give it a go. But it was a really interesting process because I ended up producing the record with, honestly, on some K-pop style. I had two like A&Rs in the room, kind of just
like,
watching
just
me do it. Like they're like, we're booking you the studio. You're gonna come in. We're giving you the stems, and you just gotta cook it up on the spot live. We gotta get this done.
Damn.
So I was like, shit. I have to deliver.
That's intense.
But it was also one of the rare moments where it was nice to have the A&R there in the room, because when I was doing something good, getting excited. And he was like, that's dope. We love that. You know what I mean? And initially I got asked just to do additional production, right? That's how they framed it. They're like, your song is there. We just need to figure out the bass line. Right. But then I started like doing more and more stuff. And like the original producer, Sky Adams, obviously laid me up with an awesome...
Right. It was like great foundation.
Great foundation, right? Yeah. And Doja's vocals were already cut, which for me, it almost took me back to my SoundCloud days, because my whole bread and butter was just taking an already arranged a cappella vocal and putting production around it. So I was weirdly in my element.
Yeah.
But I think the cool thing about that whole experience was it was nice to see that I can work under pressure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of us are we have the luxury being a little hippy dippy sometimes, where we're just kind of like, I just want the creative like this was not that.
Yeah.
This was like, you have to crush it.
Sometimes the gun to the head is like, it's a great motivator. And it makes you trust your gut more.
Dude, it eliminated any idea of like, well, it could be this or it could be that. I was like, this.
You're just creating.
I'm just like, this is it. I'm reaching for this bass sound.
Yeah.
I'm reaching for that. Like, I was not thinking, I was doing, which was super sick. And then ultimately, it was, the song ended up being the biggest song in my catalog, biggest song that I've done to date.
Right.
And I don't know how this is going to come off. I'm not trying to sound like a douche, but like, I know that like that song was not going to come out, and it went from not coming out to being one of the biggest songs. Like I think song cumulatively now is like 2.5 billion across platforms or whatever.
I just looked at it the other day. It's like it's almost 1 billion on Spotify alone.
Yeah, so it's just like I feel very confident that I was the difference. Yeah. And I needed that validation really badly at that point, because I had been in situations where I just didn't always know what value I brought, where I'm like, oh, like, yeah, like I did the track or whatever. I don't know. I just knew that this was a direct correlation of like, I got handed a demo that was not going to come out, and the decisions that I made not only made it come out, but made it a huge song. That was like I think the first time that's ever happened to me. Yeah. So just from that standpoint, that song, it was just like unbelievably validating to me. Like I needed to know that I could do that.
Do the thing. Yeah.
I could do the thing that was going to make a song like really big. Yeah. And I'm very thankful for that song. It's still doing its thing. Yeah. I talk to people about that song all the time, and they come in and they're like, even like cause I love songs that have like an application to daily life, and it's a workout anthem. It's on all the Pilates.
I was about to say, and I have it in my notes here, I was like, I feel like that's a record that's going to make you money for the rest of your life, because there's always a sync for it. There's always something for it.
Totally. It's still been living on. It's been doing its thing. We got a sync for that Will Ferrell dog movie he did called Strays. It was in there. It's in like every workout playlist under the sun, and it's just out there. I was at a 7-Eleven the other day. Actually, this is a really funny story. Very humbling actually. I was at a 7-Eleven and Boss Bitch was playing, and I was like, this is pretty cool. I'm just I love hearing my songs out in the world. And I went up to the cash register lady, and I'm never the type of guy to be like, I did this song, but I just wanted to like poke at her a little bit. And I was like, oh, like, are you playing the song right now? She's like, yeah. I was like, do you like it? And she was like, no. She's like, I only play it to energize me, but I don't really like this song. And I just like, internally, I was like, this is the funniest, best thing ever.
You can't have a successful song without people not liking it.
Totally. I loved it. It didn't hurt me at all. I actually thought it was like the funniest thing. It is hilarious. Ever.
Objectively hilarious. So I want to get a little bit nerdy on the song for a little bit. Yeah. So I wasn't sure, because I knew you co-produced it. I wasn't sure like what you did. And
totally.
Was that first percussion sound that kind of starts the song? It's kind of like a go-go bell. That was like there?
That was there. So Sky really laid me up. Honestly, like the story behind that too, the reason why it got passed on to me was Sky was having his first kid.
Oh, wow.
And he didn't have time to address like all the stuff that they wanted, or to try things. So he was like, just pass it on. Kind of like we were talking about earlier.
Totally.
He was like, pass it on. Like, and at that point I was in the mix. So I got sent Doja's vocals. I got sent a kick, and I got sent the auxiliary perks.
Do you know what that is, or you just like whatever?
Some little jangly go-go cool. drums. It sounds like it could have been like Brazilian or something.
That's what it reminds me of.
It has some Latin American kind of flavor, right? Yeah. My thing was, I took one of he had this pitched cowbell thing. It
has a melody in it, which is
is sick. Actually, if he hadn't put that in, I wouldn't have known what key the song was. I didn't know.
Right, because she's rapping.
She's just rapping. Yeah. And I love melody, especially in bass, right? And so they came in being like, we need you to do a sick bass line. Yeah. And initially the bass line was atonal. They had one in there and they're like, this isn't going to work. Right. It was like this atonal bass. It was just like, wow, 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 wow.
Okay.
Wow, 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 something like that. So like we muted that and we just went drums, auxiliary perks, and then there's that cowbell. Right. Listen to that cowbell section. I was like, this cowbell I think is in, I forget if it was C minor or C sharp minor, something like that. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna play a bass line in this key,
Right.
because that was the only melodic identifying thing. So that was kind of what gave me the sauce on what the song's supposed to be. And at that point, that cowbell was only in like half of like the first of the second verse. It wasn't even
it wasn't even like a
wasn't an
main thing.
identifying element.
Oh,
and I was
okay.
like, this thing is hot.
Yeah.
And so that's when I went from like additional producer to producer, because then I took that and I pitched it up and I threw it on all the hooks.
Yep.
I was like, this is like a really
smart.
that
Really smart,
it felt great, you know.
Yeah.
So I again, Sky like really laid me up with really good elements, and it gave me stuff to play with.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I was also only tasked to do a bass line for the chorus, but then I went to the verse, and I was like, well, verse, yeah, and I went the wah 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 wah, because initially they're like, we just want it to be a kicking and drums, and I was like, but we could
do more.
We could do more, you know. So like, I kind of. That's like the correct way to overstep, you know. Sometimes people are gonna be like, "Yeah, we just need a little bass line." You're like, "Yeah, but I'll give you." But you know.
Do you remember what you used to make? I mean, it sounds like the verse bass and the chorus bass are different, or just affected differently. But
So actually, weirdly, do remember the bass in the verse, the kind of descending bass line, was just a serum patch. It was I don't know the exact patch, but it's a sick little bass patch that I found, and that was great. For the chorus, it was a little more sound design that went in there. You're listening to 3 basses.
Okay.
So I did a very like nerdy SoundCloud producer thing, because we used to get nerdy about sound design.
Yeah.
I had like I think one of the patches I used, or 2 of the patches I used, were from this output plugin on Contact called Substance. They had this. That's where I got the gritty, distorted bass from. The
that feels like the bass of the bass.
That is the bass of the bass. And initially, when I sent it out, when we did our first kind of send out, while I was in the room, they had to send it to a big dog A&R. He was like, something's still missing from this bass line, because I thought I had done it. And then that's when I was like, okay, we have the bass. Line bass, you know, and that was a low distorted bass where I kept all the low end, and then it was like a mid-range distorted bass. I think it might have been the same patch, just like pitched up, and then I shaved off the lows, and I kind of kept all the mid-range stuff, because that was exciting. And then I added the classic. What's that bass back? It's just like the classic kind of OG 90s house bass. The one that has like the 3rd above one, or the 5th above.
The 5th above it.
5th, there you go. I know a little music theory. I knew it was the 3rd or the 5th, but it was the 5th above it, and I was like, okay, like that might be the finishing kind of recipe. And I shaved off all the lows on that, because we already had it.
It's there.
So I put it on top of my bass line, and it was the rest was history.
To our listeners, I think that's what. You know, that's the pro move that you eventually start doing. A tight low end is a clean low end. And a clean low end means, like, if you're layering basses, which you should totally do, is like you have to take out the low end in some or most of the layers. For things to kind of like.
You want it to all play nicely, right? The kick already has low end. And then so you want the initial bass to play nicely with the kick, but then the rest is just texture to make the bass appear louder and bigger.
Sub is sub. That doesn't need too much character.
No.
You know what I mean? And it's like just giving the other things to cut through. Okay, so I want to move on to the next song.
Cool.
Because we're going a little long here, but we're going to get you out of here. Don't worry. One of my favorites, I think it's actually my favorite Oliver Tree song.
Oh, sick.
I really love it. Alien Boy.
Ah, hell yeah, man.
Such a cool, weird, in the best way song. And my first question is, and it's more his thing, but I know you were probably helping here, is his vocal. How it's so perfectly loose and imperfect. What's kind of the technique there?
Dude, that I really can't take credit for the vocal. Oliver is one of the few people that I work with that is unbelievably in charge of his vocal performance and production. He's a producer in his own right. So I really was more of a track guy for this song. And funny enough, when we made that track, I didn't even think it was going to work for him, because he was really in like an alty space. I was doing some like kind of double time drum thing that wasn't even very popular at the time, you know? So his vocal production and vocal performance is what contextualized
I mean, that's what makes a great artist, right? It's like their vocals, like that's Oliver, like that's what he does.
It was almost like I think that's a very classic example of maybe even like me not being involved with the vocals was what made in that particular scenario, because he just knew what he wanted. He's the kind of person who gets like struck by inspiration, like it's like lightning. Like you'll just see the gears kind of start turning.
Well, when you're doing it, like once it's all in the box there, and we can cut this out if you don't want to answer it.
No.
But like. Sounds like there's no tune on his vocal.
I don't think there is.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the.
I literally was in a situation where he brought his own vocal engineer. He brought his own vocal engineer. I like was watching him cut, and then at some point I was just like, I felt like like I was so useless to his vocal situation, which by the way, I'm very involved with vocal production. Typically I love vocal production, but he is one of those rare cases where he is just like, I know what I want, I know how I want to do it.
Great.
Your work here is done. So
Great.
I was like, I'm glad I served you up a track that inspired you, but it was like lightning though. It was really cool. Just like I was making the beat in headphones with my buddy Casey while Oliver was cutting vocals to like another song. It might have been On and On actually, which also ended up being a huge song.
Great song.
We were like in the back of Glenwood, this really cool studio out in Burbank, and he had his vocal engineer there. And when he came out, he's like, "What are you guys working on?" And I just strapped the headphones on him, and like he was just listening to the track, and he was just like, "Send me that right now." And within an hour, I think he had already spit out like the majority of the song.
Dude, I'd love to hear that. So I want to focus on the production a little bit. I think this is something that really shows in all of your productions, but particularly this one, is that the drums sound phenomenal. They don't sound overcompressed. They're really dynamic.
Thank you.
And I think that's something you do well a lot. Like what's like your drum processing like? How do you make things feel loud but still? I mean, I can't express like how impressed I was with the dynamics in that record.
Wow, man, I really appreciate that. Honestly, it's part of it is just being aware of the actual sample. We're in a time now, especially if we were kind of in the splice era already, where you're probably getting your drums compressed.
Yes, they're compressed. They're limited.
They're probably limited. They're probably all these things.
Yeah.
So this was very much of like pick the right samples and just level them out. Yeah. I really did very little, but I also I'm so obsessed with drum production. Yeah. And I felt like I wanted to fill up every almost potential sonic space within the drum. So like you even have high note, like I got like a bird whistle in there.
Yep, that's in my notes.
I have like a little bird whistle in there, and like, I really wanted to just figure out every kind of frequency section of the drums. But yeah, it was a situation, which is cool, and with programmed drums is that if you pick the sounds correctly,
job's done. Yeah.
Just level it out right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Make sure like whatever you want to stand out stands out. Make sure the kick is, but like I didn't have to do that much. Maybe a tiny bit of parallel compression on like the kick and the snare, but like because I just love doing that.
What DAW are you working in?
I'm in Studio One.
Studio One, man, dude, it's great.
Dude, I love Studio One. Yeah. I swear by Studio One. Yeah. I'm their number one fanboy. I've been using it for like literally a decade now, and I will never switch.
They have a lot of really cool features in there.
Yeah.
Staying on the drums for a little bit.
Yeah.
Whether for this song or just in general, are you doing like drum bus processing together, or you kind of just have everything go to your mix bus?
Every once in a while I do drum. I think with live drums I definitely do drum bus processing. With program drums it depends, right? So if like if I'm doing like trap drums, I typically will run everything and clip the shit out of it. I'll throw like gain station on there or something, or what's the other one? I don't know. Some clipping.
They're all the same at the end of the day.
Yeah, so like I'll do something like that. If I'm doing an indie pop song where I'm not doing live drums, I'm still doing programmed drums, but I want to give it a little bit of a little bit of a vibe. Yeah. I'll throw like maybe a little Studer on there, a little tape vibe, just to give it some saturation and give it a little bit of that color. But I always look at drum buses as a coloring thing rather than like a problem solving thing. Yeah. I like to solve whatever issues on the individual tracks, Maybe every once in a while I'll do some parallel compression on the entire drum bus. Yeah. But otherwise I try to go on a track by track situation, and then I do my coloring on my drum bus.
Yeah, that's the approach I try and take. I lean just to especially like trying to get those day one bounces right.
Yes.
I lean on drum bus processing with parallel compression and clippers, just to be like, cool, I want to get this loud.
100 exactly.
That's what people
and
want.
I think what most people would do on their individual buses to do that is like what I do on like my mix bus.
Right.
Like I shred my mix bus.
Yeah, you're going deep in the
like
paint
we're sending out like -6 like luffs.
That's good. But I'm around like the negative.
I'm like
8, -7.
Yeah, 8 to 6.5. I would say.
Yeah.
If it's 6, I will dial it back a little.
How many stages of compression, clipping, limiting would you say you're normally doing
on my mix bus?
Yeah.
I mean, I will run you through my chain just off the top of my head.
If you feel comfortable.
I do. I don't mind. I love giving this stuff out. I do a SSL compressor at the top. I do it a 2-to-1. I forget the exact attack and release settings, but normally it's just like a
slow attack. Fast release.
And I will do the side chain up to like 80 or 90. So I try not to compress the low end.
Get the subs out
because it's gonna happen later, right?
Yes.
Then I do EQing. I do like a dangerous power kind of coloring EQing thing. Then depending on the song, if it's an indie alt pop song, I will throw Ampex on there. It's a tape emulator. It's really sick. Adds a lot of color. If not, I will do, if it's not that style, I do Black Box, which is also a saturator.
Black Box.
And then after that, I do ML4000, which is a multi-band expander.
I used that for a while, and I just got off it recently.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I take the limiter off, but I keep the expansion and compression on.
Okay.
And I also set that to like 2 ratio. So now we're getting 2 at the top with that cell compressor and getting the other 2 down there.
Nice.
And then after that, I go Pro L2, just catching peaks.
Right.
Then Ozone Maximizer for beef, and then I do Oxford Inflator at the very end.
That's my same thing at the end there, man.
That's it. And
how much of the effect are you putting on there?
I go to about like 20, 25.
I know.
Every once in a while it gets a little too distorty, especially because I'm like go with just so much limiting and already some like saturation in the middle.
Mine's 6 at 16.
16.
That's like, I'm like, it's just like what I end up doing all the time. Like, and that's what it's set at in my template.
And I go positive. I don't go to the warm side because you can like do the like more low end and then more like warmth.
Yeah.
I always keep it on the low end vibe, and like I'm in the. I think my number is 23 because I kind of just have it set up already. Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way.
Yeah.
To do it, dude. I love that. I mean, listen. This is, I think, proper mix bus. Well, not proper, but your own kind of style mix bus is how you can get kind of work quicker, and get those bounces out.
Totally.
And like. Your manager told me too that like you're sending bounces out end of the day usually, right?
I'm walking out with the artist.
Yeah,
if I could give a piece of advice to any producer out there is like if you can, sometimes it's not going to be able to happen because of the process, but more times than not, if you can mix on the go,
right,
and kind of quietly dial in the record while it's all happening, and I think it's important to have output, like even if the verses are wrong, it's okay. If the hook is right and the production is feeling right, mix as you go, get it to a place, leave as little to the imagination sonically, because there's a very good shot that the closer it sounds to finished, you're gonna get bumped up on that totem pole of demos that artists want to put out. And more times than not, my songs end up seeing the light of day relatively quickly, or they just end up happening because I'm giving you that day of bounce. It sounds exciting, and it just shoots to the top of their list of things that they need to work on. And now we're in there. If we need to rewrite a verse, we rewrite the verse. We need to bump up the click, we bump up the click. We make those edits. But I'm getting you excited right away.
I love your 2 cents on this before we move on to the next topic here. Is I'm a very firm believer that you either give artists and your fellow songwriters a bounce, like you're saying, where it's like the idea's there, it's pretty much done. We just got to make some choices. Or I'm giving them like the lowest of low demos where it's like vocal guitar, vocal piano, vocal, maybe the one sound. I feel where I'm going with this. I feel like that middle area is where records go to die.
Yeah. That's literally purgatory. Because you don't want to. The whole point, and this is more on some salesmanship stuff, is you want to sell the artist and their team on a record, right? That's the whole point. So you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot.
No.
So if you're in a position where you feel like it's going to be too half-baked and the message is not going to get across, you are better off doing a piano vocal or a guitar vocal, which is what I was saying earlier. Sometimes you don't get the chance to dive in on production. Maybe it was a very song-heavy day and you're just like, I didn't get to figure out if I wanted to add drums or not or whatever it is. Then it's totally fine to do a great piano vocal. At that point, it's really easy to make a piano vocal sound awesome.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially if the vocal performance is dialed in and whatever, compression, reverbs, whatever.
It's the easiest job in the world.
You're ready to rock. You know what I mean? At that point, you can sell them on the song, knowing that you can figure out the production later, right? But if the production is package deal, like maybe you started with drums that day and the groove was great and everyone's really into it, then just dig in.
Yeah.
Trust your collaborators. Make sure like keep one ear open every once in a while. Make sure that the melodies are airtight, whatever. But dig in and get it done.
I love that, man. So I want to move on to our next and final segments. It's kind of 2 in 1. So what I want to talk about here is what's a piece of gear, a plug-in, anything, new, old, that you're really obsessed with, that you're finding that you're using a lot lately.
Oh man, I love this question. There's a new one by this company called Mixwave.
Yeah.
They dropped what's that preamp? The Coil.
Is it the one that you just posted about?
Yeah,
I saw that.
I am putting that thing. It's like sriracha, man. I'm putting it on everything.
Yeah.
Putting it on everything. I love it.
What do you like?
It's called the CA70S. What I like about it is it's very subtle, right? It's not like. You're not going to put it on and your brain's going to explode. But like in a world where we're getting more and more in the box, it adds like this depth to your sound. It adds like this weight. It adds like this analog kind of feel. Honestly, the best example I've been using for other producers have been asking me, I was like, just throw that thing on Serum and now your Serum sounds like it's like a hardware synth.
Yeah.
So that has been a really fun one. The other one we mentioned a little bit earlier, but I love Oxford Inflator.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so good. It does a thing that I don't think any other plugin does. It's a very one-of-one plugin.
I don't even know what it's doing.
Yeah.
It's doing something.
It's perceived loudness. Adds some depth and some tush to your mixes. It works great on buses as well. You can throw it on vocals. You can throw it on drum buses.
I find it's like obviously great on mixed buses. It's number one use, but on vocals, it's just like, especially when you have a background vocal part where it's like, I don't want to compress this more. I just want it to be heard a little bit, and that
it's the one.
That's what you want to use.
Yeah,
man. All right, so we're gonna go on to our last segment here.
Sick.
We're calling it plug or unplug.
Okay.
I'm gonna name you a plug-in, a piece of gear, something, and plug if it's something that you love using.
Yeah.
That you really use a ton. Unplug if it's something that you've used and you're like, it's not for me.
Okay.
Taste thing. Maybe you just hate it. That's fine too. And bypass if you don't know what it is and you don't know too much about it.
Sick.
Which is totally cool. Pretty simple.
Okay.
First plugin here is Native Instruments Realm. It's their room reverb plugin.
Bypass.
You don't use it?
I haven't messed with it, but I love Native Instruments stuff. Their plugins are always in rotation, so I probably have it, and I should give it a whirl.
You probably do. Most people have it.
I get the complete series every time.
Then you have it. Yeah. It's like it's not what I reach for a ton because I always forget I have it because I'm always just like, I have the reverbs, like, Valhalla, and the EMT, the UAD stuff. But it does like a couple things that are cool. It has like a freeze function, which is pretty cool, and it's good. It sounds great. I just don't think to grab it ever. But it's especially if you have it. Like, I wouldn't buy it outright.
But if it's there, give it a whirl.
If it's there, give it a whirl.
Okay.
Why not?
Cool. Thank you.
I'm assuming you use this because you do a lot of drum recording.
Yeah.
Sound Radix's Auto Align.
I say unplug.
Unplug. What's not cool about it?
I don't know, man. I ran into a couple issues with it, and I think maybe I'm also I was on Pro Tools for a while, and Studio One has their own version of like Beat Detective.
Okay.
So I am just so old school when it comes to my drum alignment, where I can't. I would just rather manual. I'd rather just use a Beat Detective or just I get a better result. Yeah. Auto Align, I demoed it once in a session with my buddy Ely, and it just didn't. I don't think it did it for me. Yeah, I had issues. I forget. Maybe I need to give it another whirl.
I think I mean, listen, no plugin is perfect. It has its issues. There's this one, I should find it and send you. There's like a post of this guy where he explains like how to use it properly and like route what to what.
Okay.
To like get it to like work, where it's like basically like when I'm doing live drums, it's like I'm
because phase alignment's a big thing with drums. I mean,
it's the thing. And it's like you want to attack it in the recording phase,
right?
As like being a good engineer, but sometimes you just like can't, or it is what it is. But yeah, it's like, you can be like, one is routed to one from this.
Got it.
I think you properly want to go up to at least like 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might need to give it another shot because like I do know that it's helpful, but yeah, when it comes to phase stuff, I learned it in a very old school way, and it's been hard for me to shake it. I beat detect, and then if I hear any phase issues, I'm manually inverting phase and using my ears.
I mean that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I just like, especially even for like acoustic guitars or piano, sometimes where it's like, just like hearing what it suggests, and then you like turn it off and on. You're like, okay, I think this is better, and then you could even use it as a guide. Where Pro Tools, they have like their sample delay, or just like manually moving things over. You're like, okay, they were almost right.
Yeah. Okay.
And then
I'll give it another shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's good, it's there. Next plugin, Waves Abbey Road's plates.
Plug.
Yeah.
They're really good reverbs.
It's great.
It's honestly really funny because like alphabetically it's A.
It's
so
right there,
I sometimes just like accidentally put it on when I'm like searching for something else.
So
and I'm
fun.
always just like, oh, this is great. Yeah. I'm going to keep this. I like this.
It's kind of like my go-to for like a background vocal thing.
Totally.
Where I'm like, oh, like an ooh or a pad thing.
Totally.
That's what I'm reaching for.
It's a great plugin.
Yeah, it has that cool modulation feature on it.
It's
nice.
It's really rad. It's especially for like if you're looking for a little sauce on the verb, a little color, and it has that vintage, color to it. It's really sick.
Got that thing. Next plugin is UAD's version of the 1073.
It's Plug.
Yeah.
Plug. The 1073 is great. They gave it an update. I think at one point there was like a legacy.
Well, there's a legacy now. They have the new one.
Now the new ones. Yeah. I used it. I put the 1073 on my Unison.
Yeah.
So I have the actual 500 series 1073s. Right. So like my kick and my snare are running through those.
Okay.
But I don't have like 1073s across my 500 box. So I like my overheads, my room mic, honestly everything I think hits a 1073 like on the UAD Unison.
This is what I'm running these mics through right now is UAD's 1073.
It's really great. Honestly, it's so comparable.
Yep.
It's almost hardly a difference.
Yeah, it's really close. I mean, I use a BAE 1073 and I love it. They're just great. There's a reason why they're so universally used.
Totally.
Curious if you know about this one. Purified Audio's The Panda Rooms. It's like a room plugin.
Bypass. I don't know it.
Yeah, it's great. It's replaced. What's the UAD?
What, the Capital Chambers?
Not Capital Chambers.
Ocean Ways.
Ocean Ways. It's like kind of replaced Ocean Ways.
Oh, what's it called? Panda Room?
The Panda Rooms. Yeah, it's like a pretty cheap, relatively cheap plugin. I think it's like $60 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like their new company, Purified Audio.
Great.
It's just like I like it because I can't decide if it sounds better than the UAD one, but it's way less latent. And I can have like a bunch of them, and it's not going to like use up all my power.
Fair.
And it like sits on.
And it's like a room. It's a room. Verb.
It has
so
like,
you put it like on a drum send or something.
It has like a bunch of different rooms that it's modeled after, and it has like within that room, there's like 5 or 6 mic choices that you can like blend or like.
Wow.
It's really cool.
Okay, I need to check that out. I love me a good reverb,
dude. It's great. I use it on acoustic guitars, on drums and stuff. Just when I'm like I want a little bit more depth.
Yeah,
it's really good. All right, this next plugin is one that we ask every producer because it's one of the most universally used, and it's very, how do I put it? Everyone has hot takes.
Okay.
CLA vocals.
Oh, that's really funny. You know what, man? I'm going to say Plug.
Okay.
And the only reason I'm going to say Plug is until I properly learned how to make a good vocal chain, CLA vocals was just essential for me.
It was there, yep.
I needed it.
Same.
I love it. Honestly, every once in a while, not that that's happened recently, but still up until probably even like a year ago, I was just trying to move real fast and just not caring about what the vocal chain was or dialing in compression. It was very easy to just throw CLA vocals and rock. people, and just to even dive in a little more on the CLA stuff, like I think CLA bass rips too.
I
CLA bass is so good. Like a lot of those, I think are really good. If I feel like the job's not done, if I even on a vocal or a bass or whatever, like those CLA guys will really come in clutch and can really finish it off for you for whatever reason that day you're just not dialing it in a way that you like.
Dude, CLA bass is like, I'm always at least trying it out on any real bass I'm doing.
So good.
Because sometimes it just does the thing where I'm like, oh, this just sounds better,
just
and
cuts,
it sounds
and
done.
It feels right. And literally. And that's the goal, right?
Yep.
We want to get to the end result. I don't actually care
how you get there.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
I just want to get there.
Yeah.
All right. Last plugin on this segment is one that everyone should have or should use and whatever. Antares's Autotune EFX.
Dude, EFX is really solid. Yeah. I would say plug. I have now been swapping between EFX and Metatune.
Okay. Dude, everyone's bringing up Metatune.
Metatune is really cool, but they, it's for all intents and purposes, they're like it's still just tuning and it's cool and it does the same thing. I think FX is great because it's low latency.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to just I try to leave as little of the imagination as possible. Right. So I always want an artist to kind of jump on the mic and just do the thing. And FX makes it so that they're hearing themselves.
Are you monitoring through Studio One and not console?
Yeah.
How is it with that?
It's great. It's very, very low latency. Yeah. It's pretty negligible. I mean, I've got a pretty great computer now, so I'm running like my sessions like 64 samples. So like,
it's nice when you have like, I'm assuming you're on a Mac.
Yeah.
Like these new M1s.
We're on the M1. We're maxed. I got 8 terabytes on that guy.
I maxed mine out. It's fucking
you just got to do
incredible.
it. It's fun.
It makes your life easier.
Yeah, the EFX is great. I actually sometimes I like it more. I don't even think I reach for like Pro, like Autotune Pro or any of those guys.
It depends on what vibe I want.
I think I also have Melodyne built into Studio One.
Pro Tools has that too now.
Oh wow, you guys are 6 years late.
Trust me, don't even get me started.
But so for me, it's just like if the I'm lucky to work with very talented people. It's very rare that like
you have to really do a lot.
So if it effects and then Melodyning a couple places and you're ready to rock.
Yeah, that's all you need.
Yeah.
So I've taken up far too much of your time.
No.
But dude, thank you so much for doing this. You shared so many great tips and secrets and I think our listeners are really going to enjoy listening to this and I'm sure they're going to be writing things down to use for when they're producing it.
Listen, I'm happy to help, especially the future, man. I didn't always have access. I wish there was stuff like this when I was getting my chops up. So if I can pay it forward in any way, I would love to.
I think that's our jobs. We have to pay it forward and prepare the next generation.
Absolutely. Yeah, man.
But dude, thank you so much. And
thanks, dude.
Thanks for our listeners. Take care, guys.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning into Producer Points. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with fellow music enthusiasts. For an encore, check out our Spotify playlist featuring all the songs we've discussed on the show, giving you the perfect soundtrack to your creative journey. Until next time, this is Justin Gammella.